Welcome to my channel, Bookish English. Before we begin, let me ask you something very honest and very personal. Have you ever understood English clearly in your mind, but the moment you try to speak, your mind goes blank? The words disappear. Your heart beats faster. You feel nervous, slow, and unsure. You know grammar rules. You know many words, but speaking still feels difficult, scary, and confusing. Now listen to this carefully. What if I told you that in 2026, speaking fluent English is not about having a special talent? It is not about sounding like a native speaker. And it is definitely not about studying harder or memorizing more grammar books. It is about learning in the right way, with the right mindset and the right daily habits. If you stay with me till the end of this lesson, I promise you something important. I will show you a clear, simple, step-by-step path to speak fluent English in 2026. A path that works even if you are an absolute beginner. A path that removes fear, builds confidence, and finally helps you use the English you already know. Take a deep breath, relax, and let's begin this journey together. Chapter 1. Why most people never become fluent, and how 2026 is different. Before we talk about how to speak fluent English in 2026, we need to talk about something very important. We need to talk about why so many people study English for years, sometimes even for 10 or 15 years, and still feel afraid to speak. If this is you, please listen carefully, because what I am about to say may change the way you see yourself as an English learner. Many English learners believe there is something wrong with them. They think, maybe I am not smart enough, or maybe English is just too hard for me, or maybe I started too late. But let me tell you something clearly and honestly. This is not true. If you can understand English when you read it, if you can understand English when you listen to it, then your brain is already capable of English. The problem is not you. The problem is the way you were taught. Most people never become fluent because they learned English in a very old, broken way. They learned English like a school subject, not like a living language. They learned grammar rules first. They memorized vocabulary lists. They took tests. They filled in blanks. But they were never trained to use English in real life. So their English stayed trapped in their head. This is why you may understand English, but when it is time to speak, your mouth feels frozen. Let's talk about something I call the silent learner problem. This happens when learners spend years listening, reading, and studying, but almost no time speaking. They become very good at understanding English, but very weak at producing English. Speaking is a skill, and like any skill, it must be practiced. You cannot learn to swim by reading about swimming. You cannot learn to drive by watching videos only. In the same way, you cannot learn to speak English by only studying English. Another big reason people never become fluent is fear. Fear of making mistakes. Fear of sounding stupid. Fear of being judged. Fear of their accent. Many learners wait for the perfect moment to speak. They think, I will speak when my grammar is perfect, or I will speak when I know more words. But that perfect moment never comes. And so they wait and wait, and years pass. Here is something very important that most learners never hear. Mistakes are not the enemy of fluency. Silence is. Every fluent speaker you admire today made thousands of mistakes in the past. They said wrong sentences. They used wrong words. They sounded awkward, but they kept speaking. And slowly, naturally, they improved. Fluency grows from use, not from perfection. Now let's talk about schools and traditional classes. In many schools, students are punished for mistakes. Teachers correct every sentence. Exams focus on grammar accuracy, not communication. This trains students to be afraid. It teaches them that being wrong is bad. But language does not work like that. Language is messy. Language is flexible. Language is about connection. When learners are trained to fear mistakes, they stop trying. And when they stop trying, fluency becomes impossible. So, why am I telling you all this? Because I want you to feel relief. If you are not fluent yet, it does not mean you failed. It means the system failed you. And here is the good news. In 2026, everything is different. We live in a completely new time for learning English. Today, you have access to real English every day. You can listen to real conversations. You can hear real accents. You can watch real stories. You can practice speaking alone, safely, without fear. You no longer need to wait for a classroom or a perfect teacher. English is everywhere now. In 2026, fluency is no longer about memorizing rules. It is about building habits. It is about small daily actions. It is about listening, repeating, thinking, and speaking a little every day. The tools are better. The methods are better. And most importantly, the mindset is better. Another big change in 2026 is understanding what fluency really is. Fluency is not speaking fast like a native speaker. Fluency is not having a perfect accent. Fluency is being able to express your thoughts without panic. It is being able to continue speaking even when you make a mistake. It is being able to communicate, even with simple words. And here is something powerful. Once you stop trying to be perfect, your English starts to flow. When you allow yourself to be a learner, your confidence grows. When you focus on communication, not correctness, fluency becomes possible. So if you have ever felt stuck, frustrated, or disappointed with your English, I want you to pause for a moment. Take a breath and tell yourself this: I am not bad at English. I just learned it the wrong way. Because from this moment, we are going to learn it the right way. In the next chapter, we are going to talk about what fluency really means, not the scary version, not the impossible version, but a simple, realistic definition that you can actually reach. And when you understand that, everything will start to feel lighter, clearer, and more achievable. Chapter 2. The new definition of fluency. What fluent really means. Before we go any further, we need to reset something very important in your mind. We need to reset your idea of what it means to be fluent in English. Because if your definition of fluency is wrong, your learning journey will always feel stressful, heavy, and disappointing. Many English learners are chasing a goal that is not only unnecessary, but also harmful. When you hear the word fluent, what do you imagine? Maybe you imagine someone speaking very fast. Maybe you imagine a perfect American or British accent. Maybe you imagine someone who never makes grammar mistakes. If that is your idea of fluency, I want you to relax, because that is not real fluency. That is a performance, and it is not the goal. Real fluency is much simpler than you think. Fluency means you can express your ideas without stopping every 2 seconds. It means you can continue speaking even if your sentence is not perfect. It means you can understand and be understood. That is it. Nothing more, nothing less. Think about children when they learn their first language. Do they speak perfectly? No. They make mistakes all the time. They say sentences that are not correct, but they keep talking. They keep trying, and nobody tells them to stop. That is why they become fluent. They are allowed to be imperfect. Many adult learners are not fluent because they are trying to speak like a textbook. They are trying to build perfect sentences in their head before they speak. This is very slow. Your brain is working too hard. When you try to think about grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and correctness at the same time, your mouth freezes. Speaking becomes stressful, so your brain chooses silence instead. Here is something very important. Fluency is about flow, not accuracy. Accuracy will improve naturally over time, but flow must come first. When you allow yourself to speak freely, even with mistakes, your brain starts to build speed, and speed creates confidence. Confidence creates more speaking, and more speaking creates fluency. Let me give you an example. Imagine you want to say, "Yesterday, I went to the market and bought some vegetables." A learner who is chasing perfection might stop and think, is it go or went? Is it buy or bought? Should I say some or any? By the time they decide, the conversation is already over. A fluent speaker might say, "Yesterday I go to market and buy vegetables." Is it perfect? No. Is it understandable? Yes. And that is fluency. This is why many people who live in English-speaking countries become fluent faster than people who study English in classrooms for years. They are forced to communicate. They are not thinking about grammar rules. They are thinking about meaning, and their English improves naturally through use. Another important part of fluency is confidence with simple English. Many learners believe they need advanced vocabulary to be fluent. This is not true. In real life, most conversations use simple words. Native speakers use basic vocabulary again and again. Fluency grows from mastering simple language, not from collecting rare words. You do not need to sound smart. You need to sound clear. You do not need long sentences. You need natural sentences. When learners focus on simple, useful phrases, their speaking becomes smoother and faster. And that is what people feel as fluency. Accent is another big fear. Let me be very clear. Accent does not stop fluency. Communication stops fluency. The world today is full of accents. English is a global language. Millions of fluent English speakers have accents. They work, travel, study, and communicate successfully every day. Your accent is not a problem. Your fear of your accent is. Fluency also means being comfortable with not knowing everything. Even native speakers forget words. Even native speakers make mistakes. The difference is they do not stop. They rephrase. They use another word. They keep going. And that is a skill you can learn too. So in 2026, fluency means this. You can speak without panic. You can continue even when you make mistakes. You can use simple English to express real ideas. You are not silent anymore. You are active. This new definition of fluency should feel lighter. It should feel possible. It should feel kind to you. Because language learning is not a race. It is a process. And you are allowed to be a learner. In the next chapter, we will talk about something very practical. We will talk about what you should actually do every day to build this kind of fluency. Not long study sessions, not boring methods, but a simple daily system that works even if you are busy, tired, or afraid. Chapter 3. The Daily Fluency System. What you should do every day. Now that you understand what fluency really means, the next important question is this. What should you actually do every day to become fluent in English? Many learners feel confused at this point. They watch many videos. They download many apps. They start and stop again and again. They feel motivated one day and tired the next. And slowly, they lose direction. The truth is, fluency does not come from doing many things. It comes from doing a few right things consistently. You do not need to study English for 3 hours every day. In fact, that often leads to burnout. What you need is a simple daily system that fits into your life and becomes a habit, not a struggle. Let's start with something very important. Your brain learns language through repetition and exposure, not pressure. When you give your brain small, regular contact with English every day, it starts to feel familiar. English stops feeling like a foreign object. It starts to feel normal. And when something feels normal, fear disappears. This is why studying once a week for a long time does not work. If you study English only on weekends, your brain forgets most of it during the week. Every time you come back, it feels like starting again. But when you touch English every day, even for a short time, your brain stays connected to the language. So what does a good daily fluency system look like? It has 3 simple parts: listening, speaking, and thinking in English. These 3 things work together. When one part is missing, progress becomes slow. First, let's talk about listening. Listening is the foundation of fluency. Before you can speak naturally, you need to hear natural English again and again. But not all listening is helpful. Passive listening, where English plays in the background and you are not paying attention, does very little. Active listening is what helps. This means you listen with curiosity. You notice how sentences are formed. You notice common phrases. You do not need to understand every word. You only need to understand the general meaning. You can listen to short English videos, simple stories, or slow conversations. The key is consistency. 10 to 15 minutes every day is enough. The goal is not to test yourself. The goal is to feed your brain with real English. Now let's move to speaking. This is where many learners feel fear. They say, "I cannot speak because I have no one to practice with." But speaking does not always mean having a conversation with another person. Speaking means using your voice to produce English sounds and sentences. You can do this alone. You can do this safely. And you should do this every day. You can repeat sentences you hear. You can answer simple questions out loud. You can describe what you are doing. You can speak slowly. You can speak simply. What matters is that you open your mouth and use English. Speaking every day, even for 5 minutes, trains your brain to connect thoughts with words. This is how fluency begins. The third part is thinking in English. Many learners translate from their native language to English in their head. This is very slow and tiring. Fluency becomes much easier when you start thinking directly in English. You do not need to think in perfect sentences. You can think in simple words and short phrases. For example, when you wake up, you can think, "Morning, I feel tired." When you eat, you can think, "This food is good." When you walk, you can think, "I am going to work." These small moments train your brain to use English naturally, without translation. Now you might be thinking, "This sounds easy, but will it really work?" The answer is yes, if you are consistent. Consistency is more powerful than motivation. Motivation comes and goes, but habits stay. When you attach English to your daily life, it becomes part of who you are. Another important part of the daily fluency system is removing pressure. You do not need to do everything every day. Some days you might only listen. Some days you might only speak a little. That is okay. Progress is not about being perfect. It is about not stopping. Let me give you a simple example of a daily routine. You listen to English for 10 minutes in the morning. You speak out loud for 5 minutes in the afternoon. You think in English for a few minutes before sleeping. That is all. This small routine, repeated every day, is more powerful than long study sessions that happen once in a while. When learners follow this system, something interesting happens. English stops feeling heavy. It stops feeling like homework. It starts to feel like a tool you use every day. And slowly, without forcing it, speaking becomes easier. In the next chapter, we will go deeper into speaking. We will talk about how to speak English even when you are completely alone. No partner, no teacher, no pressure. Just you, your voice, and a clear method to build confidence step by step. Chapter 4. How to speak, even when you are alone. One of the most common problems English learners face is this simple thought: I want to speak English, but I have no one to practice with. This thought stops many people from making progress. They wait for a speaking partner. They wait for a class. They wait for the perfect situation. And while they wait, their English stays silent. But here is something very important you need to understand. You do not need another person to start speaking English. You need a system. Speaking is not only conversation. Speaking is a skill that your brain and mouth must practice together. And you can train this skill alone, safely, and confidently. Let's start with something very simple: your voice. Many learners almost never hear their own English voice. They read silently. They listen silently. But they do not speak out loud. This creates a big gap between understanding and speaking. The first step to close this gap is to make English sounds with your mouth every day. It may feel strange at first. That is normal. New habits always feel strange. One powerful method is repetition. When you hear a simple English sentence, pause the audio and repeat it out loud. Do not rush. Do not try to sound perfect. Focus on saying the sentence smoothly. This trains your mouth muscles and your brain together. Over time, sentences that felt difficult will start to feel natural. Another very effective method is shadowing. Shadowing means you listen to a short sentence and repeat it immediately, almost at the same time as the speaker. You do not stop to think. You do not translate. You simply follow the sound. This method helps you build rhythm, speed, and confidence. Even 5 minutes of shadowing every day can make a big difference. Now let's talk about talking to yourself. Many learners think this is strange or useless, but in reality, it is one of the best ways to practice speaking. When you talk to yourself in English, you remove fear. There is no judgment, no pressure, no embarrassment. You are free to make mistakes. You can start very simply. Describe what you are doing. I am making tea. I am opening my laptop. I am going outside. These sentences may seem too easy, but they are building blocks. Fluency grows from simple actions. You can also talk about your thoughts and feelings. I feel tired today. I am happy because the weather is nice. This helps you connect English with real emotions. When language is connected to emotion, your brain remembers it better. Another powerful technique is answering questions out loud. You can ask yourself simple questions like, "What did I do today?" or "What will I do tomorrow?" Then answer slowly in English. You do not need long answers. Short answers are enough. This trains you to organize your thoughts in English. Many learners worry about making mistakes when speaking alone, but this is actually the best place to make mistakes. Mistakes made in private are lessons, not failures. Every mistake shows you what you need to learn next. And when you make mistakes without fear, you learn faster. Let's talk about thinking in English again, but this time with speaking. When you think in English and then say those thoughts out loud, you strengthen the connection between your mind and your mouth. At first, your thoughts will be very simple. That is good. Simple English is powerful English. Another useful idea is recording yourself. You can use your phone. Speak for 1 or 2 minutes about your day. Then listen to it. Do not judge yourself. Just notice. Are you speaking more smoothly than before? Are there pauses? This awareness helps improvement. Now you might be wondering, how long should I do this? The answer is simple. Do a little every day. 5 minutes is better than 0. 10 minutes is even better. The goal is not long practice. The goal is daily practice. Something important happens when you speak alone regularly. Your fear of speaking with others slowly decreases. Your brain becomes used to producing English. So when you finally speak with a real person, it feels less scary. Your mouth already knows what to do. Remember, fluency is not built in big moments. It is built in small, quiet moments. Moments when you choose to speak, even when no one is listening. These moments add up. In the next chapter, we will talk about input. We will talk about what kind of listening actually helps you speak better. Because what you listen to shapes how you speak. And when you listen the right way, speaking becomes easier and more natural. Chapter 5. Input that creates output. Listening that makes you fluent. Now that you know how to speak even when you are alone, we need to talk about something just as important. Listening. Many English learners listen to English every day, but they still do not become fluent. This can feel confusing and frustrating. You might think, I listen a lot, so why am I not speaking better? The answer is simple. Not all listening creates fluency. The type of listening matters. Listening is called input. Speaking is called output. Good input creates good output. Weak input creates weak output. So if you want to speak better English, you must be careful about what you listen to and how you listen. First, let's talk about a common mistake. Many learners listen to English that is too difficult. They listen to fast conversations, advanced news, or complicated shows. They understand only a few words. Their brain feels tired, and they stop listening. This kind of listening does not help fluency. It creates stress. Your listening input should be understandable. You do not need to understand every word, but you should understand the general meaning. When your brain understands most of what it hears, it starts to learn naturally. This is how children learn language. They listen to simple language first. Then, slowly, it becomes more complex. Another mistake is listening without attention. Many learners play English in the background while doing other things. This is okay sometimes, but it should not be your main practice. Active listening is what builds fluency. Active listening means you are present, you are curious, you notice patterns, you notice how sentences start and end. One powerful idea is repetition. Instead of listening to many different things, choose one short audio or video and listen to it many times. The first time, you may understand only part of it. The second time, you understand more. The third time, sentences become familiar. This familiarity builds confidence and speed. Listening to the same content again and again may feel boring, but it is very effective. Fluency comes from hearing the same phrases many times. When phrases become familiar, your brain can use them easily when you speak. Another important idea is listening for phrases, not single words. Many learners try to understand every word. This is exhausting. Real fluency comes from learning chunks of language. Phrases like, I think that, in my opinion, the reason is, are used again and again. When you learn phrases, you speak faster and more naturally. Stories are especially powerful for learning English. Stories have context. They have emotions. They have repetition. When you listen to stories, your brain stays engaged. You want to know what happens next. This keeps you listening longer, and longer listening means more exposure to English. Subtitles are another big question. Should you use them or not? The answer is yes and no. Subtitles can help beginners understand meaning. They can reduce stress, but you should not depend on them forever. A good method is to listen once with subtitles, then listen again without them. This trains your ears. It is also important to listen to English that matches your goals. If you want to speak about daily life, listen to daily conversations. If you want to speak at work, listen to work-related English. Your brain learns best when input matches output. Now let's talk about time. You do not need hours of listening. Even 10 to 20 minutes of focused listening every day is powerful. What matters is regular exposure. When English becomes part of your daily routine, it stops feeling foreign. Another important point is emotional connection. When you enjoy what you listen to, you listen longer. When you listen longer, you learn more. So choose content you like. It could be simple stories, slow podcasts, or calm conversations. Enjoyment is not a luxury, it is a learning tool. As you listen more, something interesting happens. You start to hear patterns. You start to predict sentences. Your brain becomes faster. And slowly, without forcing it, these patterns appear when you speak. Listening also helps pronunciation. When you hear words many times, your brain learns how they sound together. You stop pronouncing words separately. Your speech becomes smoother. Remember, listening is not passive. It is training. When you listen the right way, you are preparing your brain to speak. Every sentence you hear is a sentence you might use one day. In the next chapter, we will talk about your fluency timeline. We will talk about how long fluency really takes, what progress looks like, and how to stay calm and consistent on your journey in 2026. Chapter 6. Your 2026 Fluency Roadmap. What to expect and how to stay consistent. Now that you understand how fluency really works, how to build a daily system, how to speak alone, and how to listen in a way that creates real progress, we need to talk about the future. We need to talk about what your journey in 2026 will actually look like. Because many learners quit not because they cannot learn English, but because they expect progress to look different than it really does. Fluency does not arrive suddenly. It grows slowly, quietly, and sometimes invisibly. If you are waiting for a big moment where you suddenly become fluent, you may feel disappointed. Instead, fluency shows itself in small signs. One day you speak a little longer. Another day you understand a sentence without translating. Another day you feel less afraid to open your mouth. These are real signs of progress. In the beginning of your journey, progress feels exciting. You learn new words. You understand more than before. But after some time, progress feels slower. This is normal. This is called a plateau. Many learners think this means they are failing, but it actually means their brain is organizing information. If you continue during this stage, fluency will grow again. It is important to have realistic expectations. You do not need to be perfect in 3 months. You do not need to sound native in 6 months. Your goal in 2026 is not perfection. Your goal is confidence and consistency. If you speak English every day, even a little, you are succeeding. Let's talk about time. If you practice English daily, you will see changes within weeks. You may not notice them yourself at first, but they are happening. Your thinking becomes faster. Your listening becomes easier. Your speaking becomes less scary. Over months, these small changes become big ones. Another important part of your roadmap is identity. Stop saying, "I am learning English." Start saying, "I am an English speaker." Even if you are a beginner, this mindset matters. When you see yourself as a speaker, you behave like one. You speak more. You take risks. And fluency grows. Consistency is your strongest tool. You do not need motivation every day. You need a routine. Some days you will feel tired. Some days you will feel busy. On those days, do the minimum. Listen for 5 minutes. Say one sentence. Keep the habit alive. Never stop completely. Fear will appear again and again. Fear of mistakes. Fear of forgetting words. Fear of speaking with others. This is normal. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is speaking even when fear is present. Each time you speak, fear becomes smaller. Another important idea is patience. Language learning is not fast, but it is reliable. If you show up every day, your brain will change. You cannot see your brain changing, but it is happening. Trust the process. You may also compare yourself to others. Try not to. Everyone has a different journey. Focus on your own progress. Look back at where you started. That is your real comparison. In 2026, you have something powerful. You have access to real English. You have tools. You have knowledge. But most importantly, you have control. You decide to speak. You decide to listen. You decide to continue. Your roadmap is simple. Listen every day. Speak every day. Think in English. Be kind to yourself. Stay consistent. That is enough. If you do these things, fluency will not be a dream. It will be a result. And now, before we finish, let me say this. You are not late. You are not bad at English. You are not incapable. You are just at the beginning of a better way. 2026 can be the year English becomes part of your life, not a problem in your head. And you do not have to do this alone. We are on this journey together here on Bookish English.